Hi, everybody. My name is Leena Yousefi, and I'm a family lawyer, the CEO and founder of YLaw Group, a family law firm in beautiful British Columbia. I wanted to speak to you today about an issue which is very close to my heart, and that is what I learned about custody battles or parenting time battles as a family lawyer. So I've been doing this for over a decade, and I've dealt with almost every situation out there. And there are some lessons that I've learned that I think are really important to relay. The first lesson is that most parents going through a divorce have never even been inside a courtroom. They don't even know what's happening. There's so many feelings of betrayal and loss and grief, and sometimes there's new partners coming in. It's chaotic, to say the least. And the level of trust is at an all-time minimum, and that kind of starts creating this sense of anxiety and paranoia that oftentimes gets transformed into custody battles. So a parent has already lost their partner, so the last thing they want to lose is their children, and they're used to seeing their children every day, and now they're dealing with a situation where they're facing not being able to see their children half the time. It's traumatic, to say the least. And so for that reason, there's a lot of custody battles or parenting times battles where parents are just trying to get as much time as they can with their kids, and especially the mothers. So that part of all of this I understand, but the one thing that you may not have noticed that I'm going to bring to your attention is that everything I just talked about until this point is about how you may feel about your separation. It doesn't involve how your children feel about your separation. And that's where a lot of parents go wrong. So when you start focusing on how you feel and how you don't want to lose your children, and you're going to spend any money that you can to be with your children as much as you can, you may be damaging your children, because that may not be what they want. Maybe what they want is to see both of you as different as you may be, and as much as you have hurt each other. And they don't want you to be spending your life savings on fighting over them. That's also not something that they want. So keep that in mind as I go to number two. So number two is that the amazing thing is, no matter how high conflict cases I've dealt with, no matter how long they've gone for, once the trial is over and a decision is made, and whether it's into your favor or not, you will within days adapt to the new situation, because you no longer have control over it. So you may be a mother saying, I want sole custody, but at trial, the judge may determine that it should be shared. Therefore, you lose half the time with your children. It's hard, but it takes about a week to adapt to, and then you just accept it and move on. So then the question becomes, why did you spend 2 or 3 years of your time fighting over this and spending your life saving to get somewhere that you didn't, but it only took you a week to get used to the new situation? And I have a point with this, which is my third point, which is every child that I've spoken to who's gone through a custody battle or a divorce battle, every child who's over the age of 5 remembers those moments. They remember how painful it was. They remember the conflict between the parents. They remember the bad energy. They remember the exchanges. They remember all of that. And the only wish that they have is that it didn't happen, because they lost a part of their childhood. Sometimes they would tell me that they felt responsible to make one of the parents feel better because they saw their mom or dad in pain. So they took, the position of a counselor when they should have just been kids. And what that does is that it traumatizes them, because their brain is not advanced enough to be able to become a caretaker. And then they feel this massive sense of responsibility to help one parent, or take the side of one parent and betray the other one, or help in ways that they don't know how to. And this keeps on piling up inside until in their teenage or adult years, it comes to the surface and it becomes a mental disorder, such as depression, bipolarism, borderline personality. Almost every single one of these mental disorders can come from parental conflict while going through separation. So I understand that a lot of parents have never been through it. They don't even know what to do. They think that maybe the best thing is to fight as hard as I can for my child, but it's not, unless you absolutely have to. So if you're dealing with a drug addict or an abuser, and I don't mean emotional necessarily, I mean, emotional abuse is very serious, but physical abuse of your children, for example, very bad emotional abuse of your children, those are important. But if you and your partner didn't get along, or she or he cheated on you, she or he said bad words, or there was like minimal amount of abuse, that's not enough, really, if you put it on one scale, to spend 2 or 3 years spending your savings and fighting over something that your children didn't actually want you to fight over. And that, more importantly, it will damage them for life. So a lot of times that conflict is much more damaging than the amount of time they got to spend with you or didn't. So keep that in mind. What I learned as a divorce lawyer with respect to custody, the most important thing was that in every situation that the parents tried to put their own feelings to the side and thought about what their kids would want and need, and especially the parents who started educating themselves about how to communicate with each other, about how their reactions is going to affect their children through divorce, and who to see, which is not necessarily a lawyer, it's most times a counselor or a child psychologist, to figure out how to go through this, ended up harming their children as little as possible or none at all. So the first step that you need to take when you're dealing with a separation and a custody issue is not necessarily to go to a lawyer, is to go to a psychologist and ask them, if I take this route, what is the potential damage to my kid? And what are the best ways to deal with this situation so that I make sure that I keep the best interest of the children ahead of everything that I'm feeling? If you do that, you are going to be the model parent, and your children are always going to appreciate you. But if the first thing you do is to run to a lawyer and say, I have to get full custody, or this woman or this man is not allowing me to do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to do everything to win, you will only help your lawyer and the money in their pocket. You're not going to help yourself, you're not going to help your family, and you're not going to help your children. And believe me, 2 or 3 years after separation, when the dust is settled, you will 99.9% of the time regret your actions if you engage in unnecessary conflict and without proper education. So the biggest lesson of this session is educate yourself. You've never been through it. You need to educate yourself, and you need to read about it and see as many people as you can for the sake of your children. Thank you so much. And I hope you found this session helpful. Please like us and subscribe to our channel. We have a lot more good information on separations and children and all the very, very fun stuff. Thank you. Take care.